Hello, my name is Catherine Rudd, and today I'm here to present my research paper, which was titled Diversely Equal. It was over comparing and contrasting the two mother-daughter relationships through the works of Amy Tan, titled Two Kinds, and Tilly Olson's work titled I Stand Here Ironing. First, we'll go ahead and start out with my thesis, which is stated, although the mother in Tan's story and the mother in Olson's work differ in parenting styles, they each exhibit indicators characteristic of mother-daughter relationships that ultimately affect the well-being of the relationship as well as how they view their daughters. So that's basically broken down into three different main points that I go throughout my paper, and we'll go ahead and break that down really quick here. Main point one was based off Salin, Onale, and Erder Baker research. They were three researchers that talked about different mother-daughter relationships, and they spoke about three indicators of relationship. Basically, if there's a relationship there, these three qualities will most likely be there as well. First being connectedness, then interdependency, and finally trust and hierarchy. My second main point is also based off of their research, and they also talk about two indicators of well-being. If there is said relationship there will is there any well-being? Is it a good relationship, a good foundation there? Those two indicators are self-esteem and life satisfaction. And my last main point will be discussing the mother's view of their daughter's reaction to their different parenting styles. Each mother shows a different parenting style. How does the daughter react? What does the mother think of that reaction? Things like that. So we'll go ahead and dive in a little deeper to the first main point, which was the three different indicators of relationship. Just to review, it was connectedness, one, two, interdependency, and lastly, it was trust and hierarchy. So let's go ahead and look at connectedness. In Two Kinds, there seemed to be connectedness at first. Through the quote in the story, in fact, in the beginning, I was just as excited as my mother, maybe even more so. Here she was talking about her mother was pushing her to be a prodigy child. They moved to America. Her mother wanted, Nikon's mother wanted her to be a prodigy child in anything, whatever it took. She wanted her daughter to become famous. But then as we see as the story goes on, the mother continues to push and push and push, and this actually makes Nikan rebel against her mother's wishes. And there seems to be a little loss in the connectedness there. Secondly, and I stand here ironing, there really was never a connectedness between the mother and her daughter. The mother had her daughter at a very young age. The father left them, so she was stuck trying to financially support their family. So she was always out looking for jobs, placing Emily, her daughter, in care of others. Here's a little, and ultimately sending her away to a home, and this is a quote from the story that kind of reflects this. An invisible wall, talking about the home, that mentioned not to be contaminated by parental germs or parental affection. So here, by that quote, you see there probably was no connection between the two. We'll go ahead and go on to the second indicator of relationship, being interdependency. In Two Kinds, Nikan's mother was too busy pushing her daughter away for there to be any kind of interdependency. Interdependency includes emotional support, things like that, and there was really no allowed time for there to even develop emotional support. Just due to her mother pushing and pushing for her to Nikan to be a prodigy child. And I stand here ironing. Emily's mother was too focused on finding a job, which I've mentioned, and she ended up having more kids, so she had to put a lot of focus on a lot of other things besides Emily. So that also didn't really allow time for Emily to, or her mother to form this interdependency relationship. And lastly, trust and hierarchy. In Two Kinds, there shows to be less and less trust and hierarchy throughout the story. Since there was such a rebellion through her daughter, she didn't really trust her mom. She didn't have that kind of relationship with her. And I stand here ironing this is probably the only indicator of relationship between the two. The mother, there was a time where Emily was calling for her mother at night through nightmares, but her mother just could not be there for her because of outside reasons. And here's a little quote that shows this trust between that Emily had for her mother. She said, "No, I'm all right. Go back to sleep, mother." This just shows Emily knew that she was going to be all right, even though she was having night terrors. She didn't necessarily need her mother. We'll go ahead and go on to my second main point, being indicators of well-being. Just to recap, those are self-esteem and life satisfaction. First, self-esteem, and I stand here ironing. We see throughout the story that Emily lacks very much so lacks self-esteem due to the lack of the mother in her life. Since her mother was not really there, she ended up having to send Emily away to a home, and there she didn't really get fed well, so she looked very dark, frail, and thin. And in part of my research, one of my sources was talking about how during the time period the story was written, it was very important for young women to conform to society's definition of beauty, and being thin, dark, and frail was not that. So we can see how that could really affect Emily's self-esteem. In two kinds, New-Can's mother was a helicopter parent, that kind of parenting style where she was always engaged in New-Can's life even when she didn't really want her mother there. And so in the end, since New-Can rebelled so much, she ended up not getting straight A's, not getting into Stanford, and completely dropping out of college. And we can understand how this can definitely affect someone's self-esteem. Next, life satisfaction. We see that both mothers negatively affect the satisfaction not only in their lives, but their daughter's life. Through their parenting styles, there's just not great life satisfaction. And lastly, mother's views on daughter's reaction to the parenting style. And I stand here ironing. Here's just a couple quotes that might support this. She was a child of anxious, not proud love. Just the mother realizing that she had not done everything she could to be a good mother. Lastly, let her be, so all that is in her will not bloom. But how many does it? There is still enough left to live by. Only help her to know. Help make it so there is cause for her to know that she is more than this dress on ironing board, helpless before the iron. This just shows that Emily is more than what her mother has created her to be. That she is more than helpless like the dress on the ironing board. In two kinds, initially it seemed like the mother gave up all hope on her rebellious daughter, but in the end, New-Can's mother gave her a piano for her 13th birthday, symbolizing kind of a peace offering between the two of them. And so in the end, we see that each mother had their own different style of parenting, helicopter parenting, or being completely subsided as a mother role. But each mother just wanted the best for their daughter in one way or another. So thank you for listening to my research captured in very few time, but I want to thank you for listening.